didn't call Pledge Allegiance. And Gina's going to lead us in pledge because she likes to do
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do roll call. Here. Yes.
Sierra.
Here.
Towner.
Here.
Davis.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Here. We have recognitions. We don't have any recognitions.
No recognitions this month, Marianne?
No.
Okay. Go to reports. The President's report. I don't have a report. The Superintendent's report.
Superintendent's report, Facilities Advisory Council. We're still finalizing a few items to finish the closeout on the pool. There will be probably one more Facilities Advisory Council scheduled before we issue the final payment, and once we finalize all the airflow questions from the pool deck, but we're getting close. Finance Advisory Council is scheduled to meet next week. This will be one last review to make sure the budget is up to date and ready for formal approval in September and the budget hearing in September. Kristen will provide an update on the budget this evening. Personnel Advisory, not much to update. Policy Advisory Council is attached for tonight under old business. Pretty much we are adopting all of the IASB recommendations with the exception of maybe two minor changes in two policies. Purchase or lease of land Advisory Council. I am still working with the consultant. We are in the process of trying to coordinate a meeting between the zoo, the Forest Reserve, and any other interested parties. I'm working with the consultant on that, and we'll be following up with him later this week. I did receive one question from the Board of Education in regards to bus number 304. Bus number 304 was the route that Pace Bus provided from North Riverside. It would go past the school and through LaGrange and then turn around in LaGrange and come back. And it was a bus that some of our students did ride. They had been informing us for about the last 6 or 8 months that bus 304 was going to be canceled due to lack of ridership. However, we still, the school district and the zoo did reach out to Pace and our local rep to express our concerns because of the students' use and the employee use at the zoo. So what they're going to do is they're combining to Route 331. They will be adding stops in the morning and in the afternoon that go past the high school and through LaGrange like it used to, 304 used to, but it's only 3 or 4 times in the morning and 3 or 4 times in the afternoon. And more information can be found about that on Pace, on the Pace website. Why they started it August 12th is because our first day of school is August 14th, and they didn't want to do this mid-stride to the students. So they wanted to make sure they started it before the school year. Why they didn't do it more in the summer, I'm thinking, is because trying to finalize some things with Pace and with the zoo employees for their summer help is the reason why I think they held out to mid-August. But we sent out additional communication this week via Twitter and the website, and so I don't think it will be too big of an impact. I think we had less than 20 students that used that bus throughout the year.
That was actually my question. Was that students and faculty? 20?
Yeah, less. Yeah,
Okay.
It was just students, and it was a lack of ridership. So.
Okay. And was that Rocky Donahue from Pace, or who was the contact?
Tom Robbins was our
Tom
contact.
Robbins. Okay. I mean, I never like to see public transit routes cut back.
Right.
Certainly, but I know this has been a topic. I just wanted to make sure they were accommodating in some fashion.
Yes, we did work closely with them. They were responsive to our concerns, and that's why they're doing the 3 drops in the morning and then 3 in the afternoon. And that's it for superintendent report.
Principal's report.
Good evening, honorable board members. Just wanted to give everyone a family update. July 31st, I had my second son, Hector Carmelo Freitas IV. He was born a very healthy baby at Hearst Memorial Hospital. I want to thank my wonderful wife for laboring and bringing her son to this world. it is very special what women do, you know, so I'm grateful to all the women, and I'm grateful to my wife for helping add to our family. This past Monday, we had our first Institute Day. The teachers were welcomed by over 50 students doing those popular Fortnite dances. Dances such as the floss, the orange crush. This is what the teenagers do in this day and age. So, you know, I got together with the students over the summer, and they asked me, Dr. Friedler, what can we do to, what can we do to show gratitude to our teacher? I'm like, well, you guys do those silly dances. Let's put on our fight song and let's dance and recognize them. So the students displayed posters honoring our 13 departments and teachers. It was a special day, and I really truly hope that our faculty felt appreciated, valued, and loved by the RB students. And I also had the opportunity to present the vision called Win the Week. What does winning the week look like? Winning the week is attending an event that you never attended before. Winning the week is building a relationship with a colleague from another department that you rarely get to meet. Winning the week is moving our metrics forward. Winning the week is honoring any event, any directive, honoring the mission and vision of RB. So I know we're gonna win the week with every single staff member, and I know we're gonna win the week as a district and as a school. Today, we had our day 2 of Institute Day. We welcomed over 400 freshmen. The freshmen participated in 4 mini workshops dealing with responsible citizenship using Chromebooks. The Student Association presented the top 10 tips on how to be successful here at RB. My assistant principal, Mr. Mannon, spoke about our discipline and school culture, and then assistant principal, Ms. Lindquist, spoke about academic expectations. So we really engaged the freshmen from day 1. We also had an activities fair from 8 to 10:45. Over 28 varsity sports and 40 clubs were present, and you should have seen the students ask questions, signing up, taking the brochures. You know, one of the first changes that we made together is moving the activities fair forward. Traditionally, it was done about the second week of September, but through literature review and through engaging of the students, we came up with getting them on the first day. Because sometimes teenagers, after 3 or 4 weeks, they get off track. So I was proud that we moved the activities fair forward, and we engaged our 9th graders from day 1. And this Friday, this Thursday and Friday, we have our grade level assembly. This Thursday, we will meet first, second, and third period with freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And this Friday, we will meet with the seniors. The first day of school is tomorrow, Wednesday, August 14th. So students, come early. Parents, okay, make sure you drop off your students in a safe area. We're excited to welcome everyone to the 2019-2020 school year starting tomorrow, August 14th. Another special event that we have coming at RB is the visit by U.S. Congressman Garcia on Monday, August 26th from 9 to 10:30. He's the federal congressman for our district. He will be joining us on that day. Again, Congressman Garcia will be visiting Monday, August 26th from 9 to 10:30 in the morning.
Is that open to the public, or is that just for interaction with our students?
That's interactions, boss, with our students and with our staff at the moment.
Okay.
And definitely last but not least, near the end of the month, we have our open house on Wednesday, August 28th from 7 to 9 in the evening. What does the open house look like here at RB? Well, the parents get a copy of the student schedule, and they get to walk around the building. They get to meet their teachers. They get to see what their son or daughter goes through on a daily basis. So parents and community, please come to our open house again, Wednesday, August 28th from 7 to 9. And those are the updates from the principal about Riverside Brookfield High School.
Thank you, Hector.
Right.
So, question, on the open house in the past, you had kind of like, the boosters were out there with some shirts, and patrons were out there, so if you didn't get your membership, you can. It was almost like a little fair there in the foyer. Would you have that again this year?
Yes, that will continue again.
Oh, good.
All right. Assistant Assistant Superintendent's report.
My report is very light this month, as I don't have a monthly financial report due to some changes that were occurring in our software program with the Township Treasurer. But those will be ready to go for next month. So the first report that I shared with you is a monthly student activity account report for July with information on individual account detail. Given it was in July, there was very little activity with individual accounts.
Bless you.
Thank you, thank you.
The second report is the fourth quarter rental report with some annual information as well. This report begins on page 9 of board book. There's been a few requests for a different format moving forward, so I'll be working on revising that format, and I'll share it first with the Finance Advisory Council next week, and then I can present it to the entire board. The year-to-date revenues for this year for rentals were $77,834, and expenditures were $22,710, resulting in a surplus of roughly $55,000. When comparing revenue to expenditures for rentals, we should always have a surplus, as that money is then used to maintain all of the facilities that we're renting out over the years. This surplus is similar to the previous fiscal year, which was $63,000 roughly. And that difference from last year to this year is there was one big payment, which was the pool payment, that we didn't receive until fiscal year 20, but it was for fiscal year 19. Additionally, there were some questions submitted on this report. The report only shows paid invoices. So as I was just explaining, there was no pool activity because they paid right after the close
Thank
of
you.
fiscal year 19. Additionally, there was a question about past rental revenue. And what we previously discussed was that the actual revenue rental is down from what we budgeted for. So there'll always be that surplus. But last year when the budget was being built, Scott had anticipated the revenue coming in around $100,000, and that's not the case. So that's been lowered for next year to 90, which I think is a more realistic number and more accurate number. And that was it for the Assistant Superintendent report this month.
Any questions?
Questions? No rental? I think what I had asked was probably just put together the same graph, just this fourth quarter is the year end.
We're going to do that, and I think we're going to enhance it a little bit more.
Okay, well, I had a feeling you'd make it sharper, sure. Okay. Discussion items, FOIA request.
We have one FOIA. You can see the response. The majority of the information being requested was available on our website. So our response is attached, directing the individual to the links and the location of the information on the website.
And we had talked about doing that in previous boards, not to list all that stuff out, so it's on the website. This is where you can go get the link. I think that helps everybody out. All right. Visitor statements. I don't have to read that. Additional discussion items. At this point in the meeting, Board of Education members may request to add an additional discussion item. Okay, we're just right along here. Consent agenda, action item, approval of minutes.
Since this is one thing that the board had discussed about possibly doing, you'll notice at the end of the consent agenda, there's a suggested motion. As long as there is not something that deals with specifically spending dollars, which in this case is just a minute, the board can provide a motion, and Mary Ann does not need to take a roll call. If the board's comfortable with that, we can try that tonight on the consent agenda, or we can wait until further discussion to lay that out.
I'm pretty good with it.
I'm absolutely in favor of streamlining this.
So I do need someone to read a
Yes, sir.
suggested motion.
I can do that. The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the listed consent agenda items, approves minutes from the meetings held on July 16th, 2019, open and closed, as presented or amended in the August 13th, 2019 Board Agenda Packet.
We have a second.
Second.
Second, Gina Sierra. Any discussion? Question?
All right.
So then, Mary Ann, you're gonna do all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I
You all opposed?
There we go.
The ayes have it.
First
Motion
time
carries.
wasn't the fastest, but next time it'll be better.
Okay.
That's all, we're
That was a-
gonna get the hang of
We're gonna get the
it.
hang of it.
We're gonna get the hang of it.
Mary Ann, do you prefer if the board president polls the board, or do you want you to do it since you're taking the minutes? You guys can talk about it.
All right, we'll figure it out.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
No, I went to
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry.
We
Okay. Where did I go?
I don't know, you're
Sorry.
still in France. All right, old business, action items, life day safety items, capital improvements.
Like I said earlier in my report, we'll provide we'll do a facilities advisory council here, I'm thinking at the end of the month. We're in September. We're finishing up the pool project. We're just finalizing test and balance and the amount of return air from the pool deck, but the pool is in full use. We have not experienced any issues. We're just finalizing a few things. I think there were some other minor repairs completed. I'll have Joel complete a summary report once we're fully opening school. He had about 100 work orders submitted this week with all the teachers back trying to get their stuff set up in their classroom and wanting things hung in their classroom and stuff. So I would anticipate we'll have a summary report on Joel just on the summer facilities update in September.
All right. And tentative budget, all the fun stuff.
Kristen's got a lot of questions. She can cover some of that. Definitely some good news, right, Kristen?
Correct. The budget begins on page 45 of the board book. And since the board received the tentative budget in July, the June 30th actuals were used to make changes through line items throughout the budget. The projected deficit has decreased to $427,714 without the proposed working cash transfer that we'll talk about later in the board meeting. The significant changes that were made to reduce the deficit include increasing revenues such as corporate personal property replacement tax based off of the estimate that was recently released, as well as evidence-based funding to include the new tiered funding for the first time, as well as cell tower revenue based upon contracts, and then a little bit of additional local revenue based off of FY19 actuals. I want to stress that the CPPRT and the evidence-based funding were just released. Otherwise, it would have been added much sooner. The evidence-based funding, for example, wasn't released until August 5th. So that's why we're seeing that additional revenue. Some expenditures also decreased in various departments based off of FY19 actuals, and then internet costs decreased due to the state funding broadband, which saves us some money as well. So there were several questions that were submitted on the budget. They begin on page 46 of board book. Title I revenue is budgeted significantly higher than FY19 actuals. This is because it's based off of anticipated expenditures in this fiscal year. So Title I is tricky because the grant spans 2 fiscal years. And so what happened last year is we had many expenditures that we thought were going to hit in the last quarter of fiscal year 19, and they actually are going to hit in fiscal year 20, and then that means the revenue also comes in fiscal year 20 as well. So I do feel pretty confident about that number. Food Service Commission, Quest, revenue is for RB and satellite schools. This was significantly down last year. It's the lowest it's been in 3 years. Student enrollment in each school has stayed about the same. To get the number for the budget, I used a 3-year historical, which was around 91,000, and then I lowered it a little bit since there was such a significant jump from the last 2 years to this year. I also met with the account manager, and she felt that the number I put in the budget was a number that we would be able to hit. So that's where I came up with that number. Service providers to other schools / food service is a pass-through account for Quest. So what happens is Quest bills us for our satellite schools, and we pay them on the expenditure side, and then we recover the money on the revenue side from the satellite schools. This again was significantly lower than the last 2 previous years. So as an anomaly, sales did certainly have some impact on this. And again, I used a 3-year average, which came out to 367, and then I lowered it a little bit to 360 since there was such a big gap. And this this kind of mirrors the expenditure side, which you'll see in a little bit.
So quick follow-up on that one. What is Quest attributing the decrease to?
They were not 100% certain. They did have some new leadership this year, and so they do think that that may have been a part of it, but they put together a sales plan to bring the sales back up. Last we left it is they were going to try to dig to see if there was any other reasons they could find, and they weren't able to find any at this point. Because we did look at enrollment and we did look at, you know, other things that we could think of as to why sales dropped. And the one thing that we did notice was there was a transition in both the program here as well as the satellite schools. So that could have possibly had an impact on it.
I just wonder if they would ask their customers. I mean, are the students not finding there to be enough variety or healthy choices, or is something else triggering a decrease? I don't know.
Yes, I
Just
asked,
curious.
I asked all of those questions as well. Special ed orphanage is money that we get for any special education student that is awarded the state. We got a lot of revenue last year because the state was significantly behind on their payments. And so the payments, $70,000 was for 2 years. We do get reimbursed at 100% for this expense, but we don't know if the state's going to make all of their payments. We don't have any information on that. So if we did get all the payments, it would be roughly $50,000. So what I did is I budgeted for 3 payments, which is 36. It was 37, and then I looked at, you know, half of 70 was 35, so I came up with 36, hoping that that's what we get at minimum from the state. Federal special ed room and board is being budgeted at 29 less than the 2019 actual. And this is because we have to go off of what the fiscal year 19 actuals were and then do a certain percentage. So this could vary from year to year depending on if we have less students that are outplaced or the placement changes and they go from, you know, residential to just a therapeutic day program. So the number that I put in the budget was based off of what our actuals were, and then a percentage of that, which is what I think we'll get from the state. Lastly, on the revenue side, there was a question on the Medicaid matching funds, and this is really split into 2 accounts. So there's one that's the fee-for-service and the admin outreach. The fee-for-service is what we'll be using the new software program for. We do anticipate some additional revenue for that. I can't predict exactly what it is, and so I took a conservative approach of doubling what was in the budget as opposed to going off of actuals for the first year, and then figured we could reevaluate after that. There were more questions, but are there any other additional questions on the revenue assumptions? Okay, so on page 47 of Board Book, the substitute budget reflects a 3-year historical, decreased a little bit. So the 3-year historical was $235,000, but I decreased it a little bit because last year we had a significant increase in FMLA leaves by $20,000 than what we normally have. And I don't anticipate that many FMLA leaves. So that's why I lowered it to $225,000.
Kristen, what would be the negative if we left it at 254 to see if there was any benefit from the new contract language? Obviously, if we left it at 254 and you currently have it at 225, that'd be roughly an additional $30,000 in deficit, right?
Correct. The 3 years, again, FMLA plays a significant role in this. So fiscal year 19 was clearly the 254, fiscal year 18 was 191, and then fiscal year 17 was 262 because we also had a high number of FMLA leaves. So I can certainly put any number.
Why don't we
on
circle
the
this
board
one, talk
wants.
about it a little more at finance?
Okay.
You know, just to see if it's worth going year to year or.
Yeah, because sometimes we like to track, because the FMLA is different than just calling it sick, right?
Well, I mean, based on the 3 numbers you just shared, FY18 was 191, but the other 2 years were both over 250.
Correct, but without FMLA, fiscal year 17 also had a significant number of maternity leaves in addition to other FMLA leaves. And that's kind of the unpredictable part. The rest of it is somewhat predictable. It's really the FMLA piece that
And just to clarify, I think we should have a discussion about this as the budget kind of evolves. You do intermittent or continuous FMLA? What's the concern? These are in additional continuous FMLA claims?
They include any FMLA.
Any
claims,
FMLA,
whether-
okay.
Yes,
But it still comes out of the sub-budget.
correct.
Right,
So
but it's also,
technically
it's gonna be
it's-
workers' comp, it's gonna be FMLA, it's gonna be sick days, it's gonna be
Correct.
anything. Okay.
And the important thing to consider is on the years where there is a significant increase for maternity leave, there may be cost savings because that teacher has a higher salary and then we're bringing in a longer-term sub at a lower rate. That's not gonna be reflected in this one particular line item, no.
Right.
So
But
even
I
though
will flag it.
sub-budget could be up, if the person's taking a leave, we could be saving money
If a
on the
person-
salary side.
Correct. For example, if a person takes a semester leave for maternity leave, we are paying their sub out of the sub account, but we are not paying all of their salary out of their salary line item. So it's a little more complicated than just looking at that one line item, but I will flag it for the Finance
Thank you.
Advisory Council. And then the last question on the expenditure, on page 47, was the food service expenditures again, and I used a 3-year average, and then I tried to make sure the revenues and expenditures were budgeted very similar in terms of how the year finishes with the discrepancy between the two. And so that's why I budgeted that one at, I believe, 350. There was some additional questions submitted on page 49 of Board Book. And these are about cost increases over the last 10 years. So what this chart shows is that property tax revenues have increased 19% over 10 years, so on average 1.9%. Employee salary and benefits have increased 22% over 10 years, so again, on average 2.2% a year. And transportation has increased significantly, 73% over 10 years. So yes, that's much more significant. I would say that's many schools, not all schools, are experiencing that. So not only have transportation costs in general increased, but our transportation costs are primarily for special education students in addition to field trips and athletics. And so when a student is outplaced, there's also a transportation cost associated with that. So certainly over the last 10 years, we've had more special education students outplaced. So as a result, transportation also is an
I thought I was
element.
reading that right.
Yes.
Am I reading this right?
And then finally, related to the budget, there was a question submitted on pay to play. There were 25 students that played 3 sports in fiscal year 18. I don't have the data compiled yet on fiscal year 19. But if we were to waive that fee, obviously it would reduce the revenue by $2,500. I don't know how many additional students would want to play a 3rd sport because that fee wasn't there. But there were 25 students in fiscal year 18. And that is it for the budget.
Chris, now one last thing, I just want to make sure it was clear. I know there was a comment submitted. Was it accurate that special ed costs in regards to tuition in our LADC costs in the last 5 years has increased by close to 87%?
Correct.
Okay.
And the textbooks.
I think the textbooks are included with the other things
Other
like
department
technology and
budgets.
department,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more included
It's
in there
gone
other
up.
than textbooks.
Dramatically as well, too.
Kristen, is there a way to maybe sometime in the future put down the enrollment each year so we can see the number of kids and then possibly even see the growth of special needs? Or-
Certainly. Are you asking for special education or or special education and the total enrollment?
I would do both, just to be.
both.
Yeah.
And if you do that, include a probably percentage, because it may not be that, the increase might be proportional, that's all I'm saying.
Right. Well, I think the thing is that I was looking at here was that the property tax has gone up 20%, and the salaries have gone up 22%. They're very proportional, and the other cost of running the school has gone up dramatically more.
Yeah.
And the revenue has majority of our revenues from property tax has not matched the increase of the auxiliary charges, right? The cost of running a school. It just is more expensive. It's 10 years.
So I think.
It costs more money.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think, as we meet next week and get into the final budget, I think it might be helpful to illustrate this, and I think you might have done this in previous years a little bit, illustrate this in some different ways, right? It's whether it's a line graph, but I also think we need to kind of categorize what's in these different operating funds. I think the operating funds don't necessarily track with the budget sections, and so doing a one-for-one is a little bit challenging. It's kind of one of my follow-up questions. So I think putting some, almost like a one-pager coming out of the budget that explains Wes's point about revenues and expenses, I think over a larger window. I mean, a 3-year snapshot is one thing, but I think 10 years is a more, or 5 years, whatever we think is more appropriate to tell the story, but also to show what those individual buckets entail, because it's easy to think about special ed in one way, but it's special ed plus transportation, right? It's easy to think about salaries for certified personnel and salaries for administration. Like, how do we sort of separate them all out to understand the different pieces, the different levers that are under their control? Does that make sense? I think we just need to kind of think through some ways to illustrate this.
A lot of different variables in there. Any other? Do we have more?
I think when we put that together, we'll get into more detail at the Finance Advisory Council. We'll need to give Kristen some additional time to pull that off.
Right.
Oh, no, I wasn't suggesting for
Okay.
next week. I was suggesting for once the budget is finalized.
Right.
I think as we put it on the website and
Yeah.
the document itself is
It's cumbersome.
cumbersome, right? It's
Well, and I think
complicated.
it's
School
just
funding is
Like a
a
cheat
white
sheet.
paper, a cheat sheet, something that really summarizes it.
I like the idea as we go into, October, November, December, when we're setting up, basically we're setting up the budget for next year. That's when we're using the documents. Let's talk about these things going into how we're gonna set up next year's 20 and 21 school year. Because this is the information we need to make decisions in November, December, and January.
Okay, Wes, we'll go on to.
Oh, that was it? There's no more
That's the
fun?
budget.
Kristen, you're done? Oh.
Have more, but
I-
for the bills.
Trying to deflect, Kristen.
I was like, there's no way we're finished. Okay. So we are done. So, press plus policy.
That's page 75, is that correct?
76 is where the motion is. Yes, 75.
So there's two policies that we made amendments, the Policy Advisory Council, Ms. Sierra and Ms. Horeska, and I met, and 2:240 and 2:230, and these were just minor edits. Like, I think one suggested about the policy development, the board policy committee, and we put in there, or advisory council. So it's just a verbiage change. But other than that, we adopted the edits suggested by the IASB. And I did not receive any questions from any board members on the press packet.
So discussions? On this side? Discussions? All right. Then we'll,
I'll read the motion.
Yep. Read
Let's
the-
try to get it right this time. The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the IASB Press Plus Policy Issue 101 as presented in the August 13th, 2019 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
second? All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. All right, district goals, mission and vision.
No update. September 19th is the board self-evaluation, and we'll review also the core values. I included that in the Friday update. I'll keep that in the Friday update just as a reminder. And then after that meeting, we'll set with our consultant from the school board association, the stakeholder session where we can discuss our core values with stakeholders and discuss revising the district goals.
Does IASB have an agenda for that, or do we set the agenda?
I have been working with the consultant on setting the agenda. If the board would like to see it drafted, I can include that in the Friday update.
I would.
That would be great, yes.
Thank you. And then related to that, I know, Hector, at your presentation yesterday, which was very good, you included some survey results. You had talked to kind of the larger RB community. Can that information be shared with the board? It was sort of an informal survey, but I think it was interesting in terms of priorities and goals. Might be a good place to start some dialogue.
Hector, you'll share those slides.
Yeah, I
Can you
created
send me
an
those slides?
executive summary, and I'll work with my superintendent to make sure you guys get it.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. New business, payment of bills.
All right, so there were a few questions submitted. The first is on page 105 of Board Book, and it was a question about Bauman Consulting. So based upon a recommendation from the Facility Advisory Council, a commissioning agent was used for the pool HVAC project. And this bill is for the additional commissioning work that was needed above the original work. So the total cost was approximately $8,200. On page 125 of Board Book, there was a question about Illinois State Police. This is the annual amount for fingerprinting that we pay in advance. We do recover that money throughout the years. There's a $45 fee for individuals that are fingerprinted. And in addition to our employees, we process Quest and Airmark in District 95 and 96. And if we do have extra money in our account, it just gets rolled over to the next fiscal year. But that is approximately what we go through each year. Page 146 of Board Book, workers' compensation coverage is brokered through Arthur Gallagher. We are a part of a cooperative called SELF, School Employees Loss Fund, which has over 130 members and has been around for over 30 years. I don't know when the policy was last reviewed, but I have a call into our representative to get that information. I do know that we've had 10 claims in the past 3 years. There are also 2 general questions submitted on the bills. The first was the total amount spent on phone and internet costs within the district, as there are lots of individual bills that are paid this month. So approximately, we spend $4,500 a month. In the past years, it was almost $7,000, but with not having to pay broadband anymore, we're seeing a reduced cost every month. In regards to cell phones, there are staff eligible to be on the district cell phone plan, or they can get reimbursed, and those staff members are administrators, the director of buildings and grounds, our IT director, and our school safety liaison. There are no existing procedures for this reimbursement, but I have quickly realized that there need to be, so it is on my list of things to do to standardize how the administrators are submitting for reimbursement. There was also one additional question submitted about the assorted catering payments for the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the principal accounts. The total yearly cost for all of these accounts combined is roughly $6,000 to $7,000. It varies from year to year. This includes the lunch on the first 2 institute days for all the staff, the veterans breakfast, snacks for institute days, student of the quarter breakfast, the annual district breakfast in the winter, as well as various working meetings. So last year, negotiations, for example, would be something that was included in that. Any additional questions on the bills? That was it.
All right, good job.
Kristen, for the workers' comp, can you, if you can, get a summary of those 10 claims, just so we can look at it during finance advisory?
Yes, I have it. I will bring that with.
And Kristen, can you get their return to work program that Gallagher provides? And if they provided assistance, with the district on these claims?
Yes, I will get that as well.
So we have a suggested resolution.
This is money, so we will need to take a roll call vote, right?
The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the payment of bills as presented and listed in the August 13, 2019 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Go ahead.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Zero?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes. Approval of activity account for class of 2023.
This is a annual thing we do every year when a new freshman class comes in. The board has to approve adding a new activity account so that the new class sponsors can work with the freshmen on doing fundraisers, et cetera, to begin to build their funds for when eventually they need to go to prom and their senior class gift.
All right.
This is a routine item.
Correct.
There's money.
It is crazy we are approving 2023.
Aw.
That's just crazy.
Principal alone.
Suggested resolution.
The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the activity account for the class of 2023 as presented in the August 13th, 2019 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Jacobs, second.
Had the second. And vote.
I think because it deals with money, let's just be safe and do a roll call.
Okay. Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Yes. All right, transfer of funds from working cash to capital projects. First
Okay, the board has to approve any kind of fund, inter-fund transfer, and so, last year, we had budgeted a $200,000 working cash fund transfer. We only did $50,000 up front. We never used all of that 50. We actually probably have roughly 25 still available in the capital in the capital projects account, Fund 60. The reason I'm suggesting that we shift the 50 over is I think as talks improve or get further along with the zoo and the consultant and things, there may be some bills and some surveying and some things that need to take place, and so it'd be a good idea to have this money established in the budget, provide $50,000 to take care of any miscellaneous bills. This would still leave us approximately $2.9 million in working cash to address that project.
Because if we didn't, you would have to call like a special meeting.
At some
it
point,
came
if
to
I
that.
expended the 20 and we needed to do more, it would have to be at a formal board meeting where we would do the transfer then. It's just a little cleaner if we do it now before September in the budget hearing, because then that 50 is accounted for in the budget.
So it's just 25 to make it 50 or 50 to make it 75?
50 to make it 75.
This is the first read. We got a discussion on it? It's not. We're not voting today, so we're gonna talk about it.
Well, if we have talks now, it's kind of a timely thing. Something we've been working on for 8 years.
Right.
So I'm easily persuaded that we probably need to take advantage of every opportunity.
So are you suggesting we approve it tonight?
I could, yes. I don't know if everybody else is comfortable.
I mean, the only issue with that is that we would be approving it, we'd have to approve it. We could do it in September, but we would have to approve it after the budget hearing, and it would not be as clean it would be much cleaner to do it tonight, if you could. But I don't, the board has that option if they wanted to discuss it longer over to another meeting.
I mean, I prefer to have it in the right spot for budget purposes. I think I would anticipate some invoices coming in, right, in the next 3-4 months, so it might make sense to go and have it there.
Read the motion and do it.
Okay, here we go. Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois authorizes and directs the school treasurer to make a transfer in the amount of $50,000 from the working cash fund to the capital projects fund as presented in the August 13th, 2019 board agenda packet.
Second.
Second.
Sheena. We'll vote.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes. All right. Matters for closed. Personal student, pending in the collective negotiation, school safety, up yet. Discussion items requested. Is there any discussion items requested? I don't think so. Here. Okay. Consideration of items for future meetings? No? All right. Let's close session. We got to resolve for that.
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, student discipline, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Allen, second. Mary Ann, in order to go into closed session, the board does need to take a roll call vote.
There's a roll call vote.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.